I presented here at ASCO 2023 the findings for TALAPRO-2, which is a phase 3 trial for men with metastatic castration-resistant prostate cancer, first line, and evidence of DNA repair defects. This is a phase 3 trial that compares enzalutamide alone or in combination with Talazoparib, a PARP inhibitor. So basically, it's not actually just one trial, but it's actually two different trials. And I'm saying that because we first enrolled a population of men who are called all comers, so no biomarker selection, and this was previously reported at ASCO GU this year. But then we carried on enrolling more patients with DNA repair defects, which consist in cohort 2, and this is the one I presented here at ASCO. So again, two different populations of men. So for patients with HRR alterations, the primary endpoint was radiographic progression-free survival, and it was clearly met with a reduction of 55% in the risk of progression or death, favoring the combination arm. When looking at subgroup analysis, we saw that pretty much all subgroups benefited from the combination across the board. For example, this was true regardless of whether the patient had received docetaxel or abiraterone for castration-sensitive disease or not. Now, when looking at gene-by-gene analysis, and I think this is the key in the discussion, we saw that patients with BRCA alterations derive an enormous benefit from the combination with an 80% reduction in the risk of progression or death. And this applied to both BRCA2 patients as expected, but also to BRCA1 patients, which is perhaps kind of a new finding from the trial. On the other hand, patients with non-BRCA HR alteration derived a more modest benefit with a hazard ratio of 0.68 and a p-value of approximately 0.06. Digging into more details, we saw that patients with CDK12 alterations actually may derive benefit from the combo with approximately half reduction in the risk of progression or death, while patients with ATM or CHEK2 alterations just don't benefit. At this interim analysis for overall survival, the data are probably mature. More than 75% of men were still alive when we did the analysis. Still, we see a clear trend for survival favoring the combination arm with a 41% reduction in the risk of death and a p-value which is almost significant. We will continue the follow-up of these patients, of course, and probably in a year's time we'll be able to provide the final analysis for survival. I think for the future, we'll have really to take into account the efficacy findings, but also the safety profile of this combination. And indeed, what we saw was a 40% grade 3 or 4 anemia rate, which means that we should probably select patients who truly benefit from the combination to get it and try to avoid this combination in men who potentially don't benefit. And in my opinion at least, I think we should probably in the future clearly treat patients with BRCA alterations, perhaps also those with CDK12 alterations, and probably more data is needed for these men. Now for patients with other HR alterations, and of course also for patients without HR alterations, I think we need more data and a longer follow-up before we can really say that this is ready for prime time. On top of that, for the future, Talazoparib is being tested even earlier in the course of a disease in patients with metastatic castration-sensitive disease, at least for patients with BRCA alteration. And I think this is really a key question for the future. I think there is a very good chance for a PARP inhibitor to find their place in this setting, but of course, time will tell.